Kevin Roth here of Rotogrinders, and today we're going to talk about the RG Discord. If you're not a member, you should be. It is a fantastic community and resource that Rotogrinders provides, and it's easy to join as well. All you have to do is click the Discord icon on Rotogrinders or go to rotogrinders.com/Discord. From there, you'll either sign up if you're new to RG, or if you're already a member, just click the link at the top to go to the sign-in page. Once you've logged into your RG account, you can be taken to Discord to log in there. Once you've connected those accounts, you won't have to leave the server. You can freely close out and reopen Discord without ever having to reconnect. The idea of Discord might be a little bit daunting to you, but it's actually pretty simple to navigate. Whether you're on mobile or desktop, the far left side will show you the Discord servers that you've already joined. Then next to that, you'll see the channels within that Discord. We have both free channels like Chiefs Prop Shop and our daily sport channels, and we also have premium channels like Blender's Game Theory or the Crunch Time channels. Premium members can see the difference between the free and premium channels by looking for a padlock icon next to the premium channel names. We also have a few pointers for new and experienced users alike. If you're having trouble finding a channel, make sure that you haven't collapsed the section that the channel is in. Collapsing a channel will only allow it to appear when there are unread messages in that channel. Also, we find that using the actual Discord program works better than opening it in a browser like Safari or Chrome. Lastly, if you're having trouble with one of our tools, your Rotogrinders account, or any other technical needs, you can hop in our feedback and help section of channels to get help from one of our wonderful support and moderation team members. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out on Twitter @Rotogrinders or email support@rotogrinders.com. See you in Discord.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday, March 29th edition of the NHL Grinders live show. I'm your host for today, Sean, PSU fan Stu Newsroom. Joining me on this Tuesday is Timothy Buell. Tim, how's it going today?
Good. How are you, Sean? We got a pretty good tournament slate today. I can't wait to break this down with you.
Yeah, we got a 9-game slate heading into this Thursday, so hopefully that's a bit better sizing to me. I always prefer like 9 games. I think like 8 to 9 is a good number compared to like 12 to 13, which I just feel is just too much to sort of look through on a slate.
Yeah, 7 to 9 is kind of my wheelhouse. This is my favorite type of size for GPPs.
For sure. All right, before we hop into it, guys, if you are looking for some sports betting tips, we've got you covered at scoresandodds.com. It's your number one place for all things sports betting. Check it out today for daily expert picks, analysis, and tools to help you make you a better sports bettor. We have tons of good things going on with March Madness. I throw some soccer bets out there most of the time. Had a good one the other day where I think I recommended a plus 150, but also liked the plus 400 twice in it and mentioned it. I think all 3 of them hit within the bet. So definitely some good info over there as well. All right, we are going to hop right into it here. With the first game of the night, we have Toronto at Boston. Boston comes in about minus 144 here. What is your first thoughts here with starting with the home team, the Bruins? What do you think about Boston tonight going against Toronto?
So I'm not really that crazy about the Bruins. I don't really want to spend up that much for guys like Bergeron, who's 7,100, or Marchand, who's 7,000. I think that they're just kind of too expensive for the matchup, despite the fact that Toronto has had some pretty bad goaltending. I think they're just not in play for me today. I think if anything, you could possibly one-off Pastrnak if you really wanted a piece of this game, but I don't really want to go too crazy with it.
For sure. And then on the flip side, we do have Austin Matthews on a slate where there is no Connor McDavid or Nathan McKinnon, which we'll talk about a bit later. But this matchup, however, is not very favorable for that of Austin Matthews. So do you like anyone at all on the Toronto side?
So the only I wrote up Austin Matthews today as my favorite contrarian play on the slate. It's simply just an ownership play for me. I expect this Toronto top line to come in extremely low owned. Now, of course, this matchup is probably the worst matchup that you could have, on any slate going on the road into Boston 1. That's really, really bad. However, he has a huge ceiling. So if I'm making, if I'm 20 maxing or 150 maxing, I'm not saying go crazy with him or with Marner, but I think that you should be overweight them compared to the field.
Definitely. And it's a situation where if you can get Matthews as sub ownership compared to what you usually can, you always have to look at that and factor that in.
Yeah, I mean, he can beat any matchup. He could go for the 3-point bonus tonight pretty easily. And at that ownership, then I think that he is definitely worth a play in GPPs.
For sure. All right, next game, we have New York Rangers at the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pittsburgh comes in as a pretty decent favorite at -161. For the Rangers, Ryan Strome will not be available for tonight. So that is someone that will not be available. So do you like anyone at all on the Rangers with Strome being out, and how do you think that affects them at all tonight?
It's certainly is a downgrade. I don't have a whole lot of interest in that second line. My primary play from this game would be Frankfurt Toronto on the first line. He's still priced unbelievably low for his upside. I was playing him when he was on the second line when he first came to the Rangers, and he had a couple good games, and then I got off of him when he went to the first line, and he kept crushing. He is far too cheap for his upside. I like a little two-man with he and who am I looking at here? Where's the winger? Oh, Kreider. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good play. My favorite play for the Rangers is what it usually is Igor at 7,300. I mean, he's shown that he's human, but I still really like him, and I think he's far too cheap.
You're going to have to show up to one of these shows with a Shesterkin jersey on, I think.
I know. He's always on the slate, and I feel like I always get him when he's 7,300, not 8,200. So I feel like I have to play him at that price.
For sure. All right. On the Pittsburgh side of things, they come in healthy. We're really no major issues from them, but I know this is a team that you talked about that sort of lacks that massive upside to put together a string of goals. What do you think about the Penguins tonight?
Well, unless they play the Red Wings, and put up 11 goals against the Red Wings. So, I like I've said before, I don't think I want to stack against Igor on a 9-game slate. I think you could take like a one-off of Jake Getzel, maybe Chris Letang, because he plays so many minutes and he can get there just from volume. But this is not a team that I want to attack in any kind of aggressive way.
For sure. All right, next game up, we have the New York Islanders -142 at the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll start with the home team, the Blue Jackets, tonight. Zach Werenski will not be available tonight for Columbus, so he will be out, which is a definitely big miss for them. Do you see anyone that sort of receives an upgrade to him on the defensive side thing, because he does have a lot of volume to sort of make up for?
Well, it would be Andrew Peeke for me on the blue line. If it's anybody, he's going to play 24, 25 minutes tonight. He's not going to play on the power play. I think it would be Andrew Boquist, I believe, who would be on the power play.
Yeah, I believe Boquist is the person that's the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, but I still would prefer Peeke just because of the minutes. I do like this game quite a bit, just because the Blue Jackets are so cheap. Obviously, it's not the best matchup in the world, but like a guy like Voracek and Peeke and Roslovic, and then you could even one off Patrick Laine. I think that makes for a really good cheap play. But the other side of this game for the Islanders, I really like Bavelier and what's his name? Oh, Barzal.
And you get a
I
bit of a
think
discount there, especially with Beauvillier being at 3,400.
yeah, and I think Nelson and Dobson are too expensive for this matchup. Paying over $6K for the two of them is just too much.
For sure. Yeah, not much else on the Islanders I really like. Despite them being a little bit of a favorite here, it's an away game. There are just better spots on the slate to me.
Yeah, I mean that some of these wingers for the Islanders, I mean, they're like, like Parise and Bailey, they're so cheap. I think you could put them in as fillers, but I wouldn't get too crazy with it.
All right, next game we have Montreal Canadiens at Florida Panthers. Panthers come in minus 393, the biggest favorite on the slate. Looks like a great spot for the Panthers. Who do you like from them tonight?
It's the power play for me. I mean, and they're going to be unbelievably chalky. So this is the game that you're really going to have to consider when you're making, your GPP lineups, whether or not you want to be overweight or underweight, because this is going to be the big game, I think, in terms of ownership. Now they have 5 forwards on the power play, so there's no defenseman that's going to be running the power play. That's going to make it a little bit, unusual how you stack this team. Also, the power play comes across three lines, so there's no full correlation when you stack this team. So that's a little unusual. My favorite play on the whole slate is probably Claude Giroux, who I was expecting to be like in the upper 5s to lower 6s for this matchup, but he's still only 4,900. And I think that's far too cheap. He will be extremely high owned, I imagine. He and Barkov will be in my primary single entry team.
Yeah, and talking about a guy with high upside type game and these guys in general, we are running contests. So make sure that you guys hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube and leave a comment on the video to guess how many DraftKings points the highest scoring skater on the slate will have. Whoever is the closest will get a week free of Rotogrinders Premium. So make sure you guys do that, and you might be picking some of the Panthers that you think will be the highest scores. All right, on the Montreal side of the ice, I am going to assume that there's not much that you really like on their side of things. Anyone that sort of sticks out to you, because they all are cheap.
Cole Caulfield, I really like as a one-off. I really expect, I expect the Panthers to absolutely dominate this game, but they do play at a very, very quick tempo. So I expect there to be some open ice and some back and forth. The Canadiens are so cheap. So guys like Mike Hoffman, Cole Caulfield, they are going to put up shots, and they are extremely cheap. So I think that they're definitely worth a look in tournaments. One other thing for the Panthers, don't forget about Sam Reinhart, who plays on the third line, but he does get first power play minutes, and he's extremely cheap also. So guys like Duclair and Reinhart, don't forget about those two guys when you're stacking up the Panthers.
Definitely. And just talking about Cole Caulfield last week, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's 3,700 that played 20 minutes, had 4 shots on goal, and had an assist against the Panthers. So
yeah, I mean, the Canadiens are still playing their guys' minutes, and as you see across the NHL, minutes are starting to decrease amongst some of these teams. And when you can find these guys that aren't losing minutes, I mean, yeah, their expected goals are awful. Yes, they're not going to put up a ton of goals, but they will put up shots, and they're cheap. Their price reflects their expected goals. So that's already baked into the price. So I think the Canadiens are not just a quick pass for me. I may even consider them in my single entry team.
There you go. That's a bit out there, but totally a relevant situation. And you even talked about, like, the total in this game is the highest total overall in the night. And despite being plus 331 underdog, Montreal is still expected to score about 2.5 goals. So they are still expected to put up a couple goals in this game.
I mean, the Panthers goaltending, in my opinion, is their weakness. So because they play so fast. So I mean, if their team totals 2.5, I might even consider betting the over on that.
For sure. All right, next game we got Carolina against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay is a slight favorite in this game at -138, but overall, this looks like one of your decent actual hockey games, maybe not so much fantasy goodness out of it. So what is your thoughts first off on the home team, the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight?
Well, I love that they reunited the line of Stamkos, Point, and Kucherov. I have a lot of interest in that top line. I'm not sure that I can get to them in a single entry format, but if I make a few teams tonight, I'm definitely going to full stack them. I'm not as crazy about a power play stack because the kill for the Hurricanes is so good, but at even strength, those three guys, they're relatively cheap relative to their upside. So I do have some interest in that top line. I have a lot of interest of Vasilevsky as my goalie tonight for 8K. Carolina's a volume shooting team. He's at home. He's only 8,000. Usually, like around 8,000 is the most I want to spend for a goalie. So he comes right at that plateau for me personally. Eric Chernak is 2,600 on the blue line for the Lightning. I think he makes for a really, really good value play tonight if you're looking for somebody cheap on the blue line. I think I'm going to pass on Victor Hedman. I think he's a little too expensive, and I'm not crazy, like I said, about attacking the power play for them.
Yeah, and realistically, I mean, let's be honest about Headman. Headman is not Roman Josi, so
right.
Kind of a difference between them in that situation.
Right.
All right, next. And then, I guess we'll go to the other side of Carolina. I was so fast to get rid of them because I just do not see much I like with Carolina at all. Is there anything you see differently?
This one I completely agree with you on. I don't have any interest in the Canes tonight. I think you could play Natchez if you really wanted somebody cheap at the wing, but I think you're giving up a lot of opportunity costs for cheap wingers by going to somebody like him. So really, I think the Canes are a pass for me.
For sure. All right. Speaking of Roman Josi, his Nashville Predators are at home against Ottawa Senators. They are a -207 favorite, and Josi is still up there at that 9,200 price tag. Although you can't really fault that much considering he has a point in every game except for, let's see, last time he did not have a point was in February. So can't really justify or can't really fault them for having him up there because, I mean, this guy has a massive floor, massive ceiling out there. So we'll start right with Josi. What is your thoughts on Roman Josi tonight and the rest of the Nashville Predators?
I certainly can't fault anybody for playing Josi if you really, really, really want to. I mean, he's got to be one of the highest projected raw point skater on the entire slate. But I just don't think I can do it personally. I think 9,200 is just too much of my salary. It's a tough decision. But I just, for me, what would you do in a cash game setting?
I think cash game settings right now, it's really hard not to play Josi just from what he does. He just is so productive. Like you look through the logs and like you're talking a guy that's probably going to get you 20 points or more a lot of the time. So like, I think it's hard in a cash game setting not to play him. GPP, maybe it's a little bit more difficult, but you're talking, you don't have a McDavid, you don't have a McKinnon, you have a Matthews and not a great matchup. It sort of puts you in a lot more favorable situation for Josi because just the other options you would be spending up for aren't really here today like they are a lot of other nights.
Right. Yeah, see, I mean, I usually play single entry tournaments and I haven't made up my mind yet. Like I said, I certainly can't fault anybody if that's who you want to play, but I like the Panthers so much today that it's going to be hard to get the Panthers that I want and him in my lineup.
For sure. All right. On the other side of the ice, we have the Senators coming in where pretty much everyone is relatively cheap. You have Norris, Kachuk, and Batherson are a bit more expensive, but overall, no one's blowing it out of the water with this team. Anything you like here for the Senators?
I mean, I always really like Brady Tkachuk quite a bit. I really like his shot floor, his minutes. He plays on the top line at even strength and on the power play. The Predators' kill is pretty bad. So, I mean, I would want to attack that with him. But I wouldn't get too heavy with this team on a whole. The other thing I wanted to point out for a cheap blue liner is Alexander Carrier, 2,800. He plays quite a few minutes, and he's a good points per dollar play.
For sure. All right, next game. We have the Philadelphia Flyers at Minnesota Wild. Flyers are a significant underdog here, and they look to be really lacking in terms of star power and production. With the exception of Ken Atkinson, I always find him to be playable when he's at a cheap price point because of the shots he can sort of put up. Is there anyone else on the Flyers that you think is viable at all tonight?
I think James Van Riemsdyk is always playable, and he's under 3K. I think anytime you can get him under 3K, he's playable. But that would be really about it from the Flyers side for me.
Yeah,
on the Wild side, I think they're gonna be kind of like the other Panthers of this slate, the other top kind of dog in terms of ownership and raw point potential. And I think that's kind of the decision that you have to make as a player on your own teams about, do I want to go heavier on the Wild or do I want to go heavier on the Panthers? Because they're both in unbelievable spots. The Wild top line, they're a little bit more expensive than the Panther top line, but they fully correlate on the power play, so there is that. I do prefer the Panthers tonight over the Wild, but they're both in smash spots.
Yeah, and speaking about the Flyers a little bit, like, yes, they may not be that great of a team right now, but they've still been scoring some goals. In the last few games, they've scored 4-3, 5-3 goals. So you still have a team that is producing to some extent, despite maybe not being one of the better teams in the league.
And Fleury's starting tonight. So Talbot's been red hot. So we'll see kind of if Fleury can keep that momentum going for the Wild. I mean, it's better for the Flyers that Fleury's starting.
For sure. All right, next game we have Colorado Avalanche at the Calgary Flames. Calgary is a slight favorite here, -137. Big news in this one is Nathan MacKinnon will not be playing tonight for the Avalanche, which is obviously a major shakeup for them. So what are your thoughts on the Avalanche tonight? And I believe that you liked a bet actually in this game as well.
Well, I bet the Flames before the MacKinnon news, so I got pretty lucky with that. Now I don't know I don't know if that's still going to be, something that I can recommend, but obviously they have a better chance of winning, but the line is a lot higher now. So, but in terms of DFS, I mean, you're just going to have to see what the Avalanche are going to do. It's obviously a huge downgrade. MacKinnon is a top 3 skater in the NHL, so losing him is gigantic. It makes me like Jacob Markstrom a lot more. I already liked him as a GPP goalie. He's 7,800 at home now playing the Avs without MacKinnon. I expect the Flames to win this game. If Kadri is centering the first line, he's a volume shooting center, so Markstrom should be able to see some shots. So my favorite play for the Flames is Markstrom.
Understandable. So in terms of thinking they're going to win, do you like the Lindholm, Gaudreau, Tkachuk pair or threesome that are out there? Because they are quite expensive in comparison to the teams you talked about with Minnesota and Florida.
They're super expensive, but their minutes are not as secure as some of the other lines that we've mentioned already today. That's the only problem. And one of the reasons I like the Flames so much as a whole, as a team, is because their depth is so good. They really have 3 lines that can score. So I hesitate to play them in DFS because I feel like the scoring can just be so spread out. They're not cheap. Their minutes aren't secure. So I don't well, I mean, they don't have as high of a minutes floor as some of the more comparable skaters at that same price point. So I'm hesitant to play them in DFS formats.
Understandable. All right. Last game of the night, we have the Dallas Stars -160 at the Anaheim Ducks. We'll start with Dallas in this game. Is there anyone on the Stars that comes out and stands out to you at all?
This game is kind of tricky because, again, I want to play Dallas 1, but that's another team where the minutes are not secure. But this Ducks team is really in free fall. So I mean, they're really, really bad. I really do. I mean, I want to play, Joe Pa and Robertson and Hintz, but it's just, this is a tough little late night hammer because this game is just pretty ugly. They're a good mid-range option, but I'm not crazy about it.
For sure. All right. The other side of the ice, we have Adam Henriquez still out, or is expected not to be in the lineup tonight. I guess it's not been confirmed as of yet. Anyone else on the Ducks that sort of stands out at all? Because the entire team is cheap. No one is over 4,200 on their roster.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I would prefer playing Ducks over the Stars just so I can get some of those kind of expensive Panther or Wild players or Yossi. I think that you could play like a Derek Grant for 2,600. I think that, it's just, there are some of these cheap pieces. Trevor Zekras you could play, who correlates with Grant on the second line and top power play. So, I mean, I think that's a super, super cheap 2-man. Troy Terry. Yeah, I mean, I'd be much more interested in getting to the Ducks than the Stars.
For sure. All right, that is going to wrap up all the 9 games. So why don't we talk a little bit more about goalies? I know you talked about Shesterkin and Markstrom, some of the other goalies you like. Is there anyone else that stands out to you tonight that might make a little bit of sense for people?
I don't know. I do kind of like whoever is in net for the Islanders tonight.
Which we're thinking is Varlamov, but have not heard any news on that yet.
Right. Yeah, I think he's a good play. I mean, I guess Saros. I always like Saros. I think he's one of the better goaltenders in the league. But he, again, he's a little expensive for my taste. So it's Markstrom, Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, Saros, and I think that would do it for me.
There you go. All right. Is there anything else, Tim, that stands out to you tonight, or do you think we've covered it all?
I think that's good for me.
There we go, everyone. So that's going to wrap it up for us here on Tuesday. We will be back on Thursday with another breakdown as well. Like we said, if you guys are looking for some sports betting, make sure you check out Scores and Odds. And good luck for everyone. For Tim, I'm Sean. We'll see you on Thursday.